When a young bride is humiliated in front of hundreds, her world shatters in an instant. Laughter, betrayal, and a heartbreak too heavy to carry. But just when everyone thought her story was over, the most feared and powerful man in the city stood up and changed everything. This is not just a story of shame, it's about courage, redemption, and an unexpected love that rises from the ashes. Sparkle, stay with us until the very end, because the twist will leave you breathless. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And tell us in the comments, which country are you watching this from? Now, let's begin. The laughter hit before the bouquet ever left a bride's hand. Olivia's heart was already on the floor, alone, gown smeared, gaze unfocused, soul torn. 300 guests packed the vaulted sanctuary of St. Matthew's in Manhattan. The organ had swelled, doors had opened, and Olivia, 18, all soft brown waves and wide dreamer's eyes, had taken her father's arm for the slow walk to the altar. But Mark Rossi wasn't there. Only a confused priest, 2 fidgeting groomsmen, and her childhood best friend, Chiara, who wouldn't meet Olivia's eyes. A wedding coordinator sprinted up the side aisle with a white envelope. Olivia's fingers shook as she opened it. Mark's handwriting, usually neat, was a frantic scrawl. "I can't do this. You deserve the truth. Chiara and it's been months. She's pregnant. I'm sorry." Silence detonated. Then a woman's cruel cackle. "Didn't even see it coming." Another voice. "Such a naive little virgin." Phones rose like bayonets, recording her collapse. Her bouquet rolled down the chancel steps, white roses scattering like teeth. The main doors boomed open. Mark strode in, hand laced with Chiara, chin tilted with a petty triumph he hadn't earned. A chair scraped in the back. A single word, iron and final. "Enough." Heads turned. Victor DeAmato, New York's most feared and least understood billionaire, stood in a slate Italian suit. Blue eyes, winter cold. He cut down the marble aisle, guests parted as if pushed by a tide. Mark's smirk curdled. Victor shrugged off his jacket and draped it over Olivia's bare shoulders, the weight warm, protective. He offered his hand. "Miss Hart," he said, voice low but carrying. "Let me take you out of here." Her palm slipped into his. He faced the crowd. "The show," he said, every syllable glacial, "is over." With his steady hand at her back, Olivia left the altar where her old life died. A black Jaguar coasted into the rain, Manhattan's lights blurring, the city's jeers sealed behind tinted glass. Victor drove in silence toward the heights, past iron gates that opened without a sound, into a Tuscan dream on the Hudson, olive trees, cypress sentries, a marble fountain whispering in the dark. Inside, a silver-haired housekeeper named Julia ushered Olivia to a guest suite and a hot shower. Under the water, Olivia finally cried, until the day's jagged images dulled and the burn in her chest turned into a fragile, bewildered calm. Later, in a navy silk robe, she stared out at the city's glow when a soft knock came. Victor stood in the doorway, tie undone, the severity of his face gentled by lamplight. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like the girl I was died in that church," she said. He nodded as if he knew the gravestone's weight. "Then let's decide who you'll be tomorrow." Morning came with chamomile tea, a folded note, and space to breathe. Days at the DeAmato estate settled into a quiet rhythm, Julia's soft authority, fresh flowers appearing on Olivia's nightstand, books materializing, poetry, design, a slim volume of Italian phrases. Victor was rarely home by day, but his presence lived in details, order that never felt cold, generosity that never asked for thanks. At night, faint music drifted from somewhere deep in the house. One storm-lit midnight, Olivia followed a piano's lull to a glass-walled music room. Victor's jacket lay over a chair, his shirt sleeves were rolled, forearms taut over keys. An old Italian line inked his wrist flashed with each phrase. He didn't turn. "You plan to keep hiding there?" he asked, a ghost of a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. She stepped inside. "I didn't know you played. There's a lot you don't know about me," he said, and changed to something tender and minor. as if the night itself were listening. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You barely know me." He paused, then let the chord resolve. "Because no one else did. And because I've seen too many people humiliated by those who claim to love them." He stood, poured a small whiskey, considered it, never drank. "You need a clean start. I could use someone not afraid to stand beside me." He handed her a thick envelope, a contract, precise and clinical. 3 months, he said. "Be my public companion. Appearances, dinners, a few trips. Nothing intimate. You keep your independence, your voice, your dignity. You get a salary large enough to restart your life on your terms." Olivia read the numbers and swallowed. "This is obscene. This is business," he corrected gently. "You get time and shelter from the circus the Rossis created. I get a woman at my side who cannot be bought, because I am offering everything up front. What if I say no? Then you stay here as long as you need and walk out when you're ready. No debt. No strings." She looked at him, at the lines of sleeplessness carved near his eyes, at the control he wore like armor. "And if I say yes? Then we begin tomorrow night at the Italian consulate gala," he said. "Mark will be there. So will Chiara." Her pulse jumped. "You want me to face them?" "No," he said, a cool smile forming. "I want you to eclipse them." Julia spent the next day transforming Olivia into someone the cameras couldn't look past. Hair in soft waves, a red silk gown that skimmed and suggested, nails lacquered to match. In the library, Victor waited in a black tux that made restraint look dangerous. He opened a velvet box, diamonds glimmering like captured ice. "Every rebirth deserves a crown," he said, fastening his grandmother's necklace at her throat. "Rules for tonight," he added, meeting her gaze in the mirror. 1. You are not the jilted girl. You're Olivia DeAmato, a distant cousin visiting from Rome. 2. Stay close. 3. And it matters most, no weakness. At the consulate, flashes crackled before they even stepped from the Jaguar. Conversations dimmed to a hum as Victor guided her through marble and gold. In a corner, Mark paled. Beside him, Chiara wore green that couldn't camouflage the curve beneath it. "Ignore them," Victor murmured at Olivia's ear, his hand a steady weight at her waist. "They're nothing now." Introductions blurred, ambassadors, CEOs, old families whose last names opened doors. Olivia spoke in the Italian Julia had drilled into her all week, grace notes of piacere and grazie that disarmed the stiffest faces. Mark finally approached. "I ask you," regret souring his smile. "Olivia, I didn't know you would survive your little public spectacle," she said in ice-smooth Italian. Victor returned with champagne, his presence like a shadow that warmed instead of chilled. "Problem?" he asked. Mark faltered. "No, Mr. DeAmato." "Then I suggest you move along," Victor said. "My companion doesn't waste breath on subordinates." Chiara slid in, venom masked as concern. "Sold yourself to the first rich man who would have you." Olivia stepped closer, voice low and honeyed. "No, sweetheart. I learned the difference between boys who pretend to be men and actual men." Her glance dropped, surgical, to Chiara's belly. "I'm sure you'll be very happy," she finished. "It takes a certain talent to turn one trap into a promise." The orchestra swelled. Victor extended a hand. "Dance with me, Bella." On the floor, he moved with a precision that made Olivia feel inevitable. Every turn a choice, every step a claim. "You were magnificent," he said at her ear. Her chest ached with something bright and reckless. "Victor," she breathed. "I think I'm falling in love with you." The music stopped. For a breath, his control cracked. The storm in his eyes rolled to shore. He bent and kissed her, unmistakable, unhurried, unafraid, drawing a line around them that the room itself respected. When he broke away, applause stuttered, whispers rose, none of it mattered. "We're leaving," he said, voice rough. They passed Mark and Chiara without a flicker. For the first time since the church, looking at them didn't hurt. It felt like a door closing on a room she'd never visit again. The city thundered, the mansion hushed. 2 weeks later, during a rain that turned the windows to waterfalls, Victor walked into the library looking like a storm dressed in a loosened tie. He poured whiskey, swallowed lightning, and finally said, "Today is my son's birthday. He would have been 16. Olivia's breath caught. He stared into the glass as though it could rewind time. "Alessandro," he said, voice breaking on the name. "His mother, Eleanor, was wildfire. After he was born, she unraveled. Doctors said postpartum depression. She refused help. One night in a storm like this, she said she was taking him to her mother's for the weekend. I barely looked up from a deal." He closed his eyes. "They found the car 3 days later at the bottom of a ravine. She'd wrapped herself around him like a shield." The tumbler shattered in his grip. Blood welled. He didn't flinch until Olivia caught his hand. "You're bleeding." She cleaned the cuts, closeness replacing caution. "It was easier to be feared than to feel," he whispered. "Easier to build walls than lose someone again." He met her eyes. "Until you." She kissed him, not with hunger, but with the careful reverence people bring to places of worship. "Come," he said suddenly, leading her up a locked staircase to a door he never opened for anyone. Inside, a boy's room suspended in amber, Hot Wheels lined on shelves, a Batman duvet, a half-finished worksheet waiting for a hand that never returned. Victor lifted a crayon drawing, a red race car with 2 stick figures inside. "His last," he said. "He told me we were headed to the track." Olivia wrapped him from behind. His muscles eased under her arms. "You're the first person I've wanted to show this to in 10 years, he said. "The first who made me believe there's a life on the far side of loss." That night they didn't make love. They held each other and slept. Grief finally granted the dignity of air. Morning brought sunlight and an envelope from a university in Milan. Months before the disaster at St. Matthew's, Olivia had applied for a master's in Italian literature and never told Mark. Hands shaking, she opened it. "Full scholarship," she whispered. Joy collided with dread. Victor smiled, a real, unguarded flare. "Congratulations, amore." And then the ache. "When do classes start?" 3 weeks. He turned to the windows, shoulders squared against a pain he didn't mask quickly enough. "You have to go." "And us?" "I love you too much to keep you in my shadow," he said, taking her face in his hands. "You deserve to become Olivia Hart, on your own terms." The next days spun in logistics. An apartment off Via Manzoni, a stipend she protested and he called. An investment. A wardrobe for real winters and spring rain. On their last night, they dined under lanterns in the rose garden. By the fountain, he fastened an antique gold locket at her throat. "My mother gave me this," he said. "She told me to give it to the woman who makes my heart beat again." Inside, a sunlit photo of Victor with a laughing boy, and a candid from the consulate, he and Olivia mid-waltz, the world blurred around them. He touched his forehead to hers. "If I kiss you now, I won't let you go." At dawn at JFK, he pressed a finger to her lips. "Don't say goodbye. Say see you soon." "See you soon," she breathed, and walked toward a future that terrified and thrilled in equal measure. 2 years is a lifetime when you're counting heartbeats. In Manhattan, Victor wore Olivia's sapphire ring on a chain beneath his shirt, close as a vow. The DeAmato mansion learned new silences. Julia watered roses and paused sometimes outside the room that had become Olivia's. Letters arrived from Milan in looping Italian that grew more confident with each page. Professors she adored, cathedrals that felt like prayers in stone, afternoons at the Brera that healed parts she hadn't known were broken. Victor kept every letter in a carved wooden box, reading them on nights when the city felt hollow. They didn't see each other. It was a pact they both hated and honored. "If I see you," Victor had said, "I won't let you go again." When the 2 years neared their end, he planned a gala, the DeAmato Foundation's first benefit for orphans, a quiet monument to Alessandro, turning pain into shelter. He stood on stage in a black tux as the elites of New York drifted in, eyes sliding to the entrance again and again until Julia murmured, "She'll come." Olivia stepped into the ballroom and time split. Milan had burnished her, a gold silk gown that moved like poured light, hair cropped chic and sure, the locket at her throat catching chandeliers. Victor forgot to breathe. Without a script, without his armor, he took the microphone. "Forgive the interruption," he said, voice thick. "There's something I need to do." He walked toward her as the crowd dissolved into hush. 2 years ago, he said, I met a woman who taught me that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what matters. At arm's length, he handed the mic to no one. He touched the chain at his neck, unfastened the sapphire, and dropped to one knee on a floor that had never seen him bow. "When I gave you this ring," he said, looking up at her through a storm he no longer feared, "I promised it wasn't a proposal. Today it is. I can live without power, without money, even without sleep, but I refuse to live another day without you beside me. Olivia Hart, my love, my light, will you marry me?" Tears sequined her lashes. In the corner, Mark and Chiara watched, older, dimmer, irrelevant. Olivia saw them and felt nothing but closure. She looked down at the man the city feared and saw only the man who had knelt in a boy's room and let himself be human. "Yes," she said, first in Italian, then in English, the word flowering twice. He slid the ring home. The room detonated in applause, but inside the circle of his arms, there was only breath and laughter and a kiss that collapsed 2 aching years into one bright now. Later, on the terrace of what was now their home, truly theirs, Victor held Olivia against his chest beneath a sky washed clean by summer rain. "What would Alessandro say if he were here?" he asked, voice soft with a hope that no longer hurt to carry. Olivia smiled into his shoulder. "He'd say, 'Finally, Dad. Finally you found someone who makes your eyes light up the way mine did when you told me stories.'" Tears came, the good kind, the kind that water new roots. Inside, the gala music receded to a heartbeat. Victor kissed her temple. "Sometimes we have to walk through hell to find heaven," he murmured. She tilted up, framing his face in her hands. "And sometimes we have to lose a small love to make room for the great one, the kind that changes the air we breathe." He laughed, a sound that belonged to the man he was becoming, not the fortress he'd been. "The kind that makes a scary man kneel in front of a crowded room," he said. "Exactly," she whispered, stealing another kiss. They danced alone as the city glittered below, bodies moving in an ease that felt like coming home. Tomorrow there would be headlines and meetings and 1,000 things that always demanded him. There would be visas to finalize and a ceremony to plan that felt more like a promise than a performance. There would be visits to a small, sacred room on the 3rd floor and fresh flowers placed there with care. There would be a locket that never left her throat, and a ring that finally rested where it belonged. But tonight was simple. 2 people who had been broken and brave, who had chosen each other over the safety of walls, learning that sometimes justice arrives not as punishment but as love that mends. Olivia slid her fingers through Victor's and squeezed. He answered with a smile she felt in her bones. And the life that had begun the day a stranger's jacket warmed her shaking shoulders finally, fully started.